Hey guys, it's Lauren Wade here. I am going to be telling you guys about my research project that I did that focused on cognitive reappraisal. I hope you enjoy. So the background of my project was based on a lot of research that was done previously by Dr. Jeremy Jameson. He focused on the biopsychosocial model of challenge and threat and related that to cognitive reappraisal. So the biopsychosocial model of challenge and threat is basically you can either see your stress as being threatening to you, meaning it's going to cause those negative reactions in the long run, or you can see it as a challenge, that it's something that is going to empower you and help you, be more motivated and work harder. The idea is that you have these appraisals, and you have resource appraisals where you feel that you have the resources to cope with your stress, or you're going to feel that your stress is more demanding. So obviously having more resources is the challenge, which is going to basically just do like the short-term effects of stress on your body. You're just going to get the physical arousal, which is natural, it's normal. However, if you feel that your stress is more demanding, it's going to you're going to see it as more threatening, and that's what activates your HPA axis. And that is when, if you have it for a long term, you start to have vascular resistance, lower CO2 levels, all sorts of health issues, lowered immune system, etc. So what I did for my project is I wanted to see, just like Jeremy Jameson, how reappraisal can help you to focus more on the resource and challenge side of it. Cognitive reappraisal is the idea that basically you recognize that your stress is a positive thing. It's something that's going to help you get through and motivate you and help you work faster, and then, it can subside. So, Jeremy Jameson went into classrooms. I wanted to see how this works in a workplace. I want to go into IO psychology, so I figured why not? And then I included these funny memes. My job helps pay for the stress eating caused by my job. And then it's gotten to the point where I'm working here to pay for the prescriptions I now require to cope with working here. So that's the purpose of my study, is just to find out if cognitive reappraisal is effective in the workplace as it was in classrooms as well, in order to deal with stress in a more positive way. So this table that I embedded on this slide is actually straight out of Dr. Jeremy Jameson's previous research that he did in the classroom. You can see that it was done over 2 exams. The first exam, he provided the materials that taught people about cognitive reappraisal or a placebo effect. Basically what we found over these 2 exams is that for the reappraisal group, resource appraisals increased and demand appraisals decreased. On the other hand, placebo, which was basically participants were told to ignore their stress, their resource appraisals decreased and their demand appraisals increased. So my thought was that within a workplace, I would expect it to be the same. So my hypothesis I based on the previous research, and the next few slides will explain it in. So the methods portion of my research project was pretty straightforward. I gathered participants. They got placed either into a cognitive reappraisal or ignore stress group. When they got placed, they would learn about how to deal with their stress based on these 2 concepts. Immediately after, they would take a demand and resource appraisal questionnaire, and then they would go to their shift. An hour following their shift, they would take the same questionnaire again. And on the next slide, I'll explain more about the materials for that. My method of gathering participants, I went into classrooms and provided a sheet that had phone numbers, phone carriers, shift start time, and shift end time. This was basically participants' way of originally consenting. And then I would use Boomerang through Gmail, which would allow me to send text messages from my email. This would send them the text message for the cognitive reappraisal or ignore stress materials, as well as both demand and resource appraisal questionnaires. So they would receive the materials and questionnaire an hour before work, and then the next questionnaire they would get immediately after work, and they were told to do it within an hour after work. The link was through Qualtrics, which would automatically put them in either groups, which made it really convenient. And I ended up not getting a ton of people, so I had 5 males, 13 females, 18 participants total. The mean age was 28.67. I had 11 participants in the cognitive reappraisal group and 7 in the ignore group. Alright, so I'll give you guys a brief explanation of the materials I used. Most of my materials, actually all of my materials, came from Dr. Jeremy Jamison's past research. Materials that weren't listed within the articles were emailed to Dr. Condon by Dr. Jeremy Jamison for me to use, which is really nice. So on the left side, you can see that there's the image there, and that's for cognitive reappraisal. Participants for both cognitive reappraisal and ignore stress groups were basically given short excerpts from articles that explained how to deal with their stress in these ways. They would answer a couple, or they would write about what they learned from it, ensuring that they were retaining the information. And as you can see here, this is showing that like what stress does to your body, but is putting it in a more positive light. The questionnaire that they were to take was a demand and resource appraisal questionnaire. As you can see, the demanding questions ask, this shift will be demanding, this shift will be stressful, etc. And the resource appraisals is the opposite. I have the abilities to perform well at work, I have the expectations to perform well at work, etc. So to analyze my data, I did a 2x2 mixed factorial ANOVA. My independent variables were the instruction, so either ignore and reappraisal, or the timing, pre-shift, post-shift. Unfortunately, I did not get any significant results. There was no interactions between the two groups. There was no main effect on instruction, and there was no interaction between instruction and timing as well. I actually found almost the opposite of what I wanted. So as you can see in this chart, for cognitive reappraisal, while the demands did go down a little bit, resource appraisals also went down, and the same is actually true for the ignore group too. So their demand appraisals went down, but so did their resource appraisals. So I kind of found mixed results, but didn't really find what I was hoping to, and it definitely doesn't compare to the original study by Dr. Jeremy Jamison. So I had to make fun of myself a little bit, add some funny pictures. The first one says, "Do you have significant results on your project yet?" Not yet, sir. Still working on it." How about now?" "Still nothing." And that's kind of how I felt my entire project. And then the other one says, "And this is where we put the non-significant results, away in a file cabinet. And as soon as I leave here, mine are disappearing into the air." So when analyzing my data, I created a demands and resource appraisal ratio. What I ended up finding with this when looking between times, so pre and post shift, I found that basically it showed threat appraisals. So people felt their shift was more threatening, or they still felt when they got off work that they felt more threatened during their shift rather than seeing it as a challenge. This is a little disappointing in my findings, and it also just makes me want to research a lot more as to why people are feeling more stressed when they get off work. They go in more optimistic and come out feeling worse when they leave work. So that's kind of disappointing. And then for explanations, I was not testing for physiological indexes of stress. I didn't test for like the sweat glands or heart rate or blood pressure, anything like that. It was people's appraisals, and the way they analyzed it. So it could be the wording, the way the questions, had been written, or it could be that the physiological response would say something different. Maybe they're having less of a response after work. But it is interesting to look at how they view those responses. Um, there's a chance with these 18 people that their workplace is very high stress, or even that because they're coming from school or they know they have to do school or school work, they could just be stressed already, or they leave work and they just know they have to go do stress or homework that's stressful. So, um, and then also the distribution of materials between Dr. Jameson's study and my own is very different. So, the original study was handed out at a community college in person right before they took the test. Mine was sent through a text message. Participants were kind of like pressured in a way to do it, so that could be stressful. And then going off of that, like maybe participating in my research was just a very stressful thing overall. So there's many, possible explanations. And I would definitely love to continue to do further research. That's why I want to go into IO psychology and find out, what makes people so stressed at work and how can we actually conquer this problem, or at least, alleviate some of the stress people feel at work. If you would like to look back at any of the research that was done prior to my own, I provided the main article. Last but not least, I wanted to thank Dr. Paul Condon. He helped me a lot during this project. He was actually the one that gave me the idea for it, provided me with a lot of articles, guided me through the whole thing, and helped me with all my analysis.